us civilians would be catered for and personal protection shit would be carried out.
And it wasn't.
It's all police stuff.
Yep.
Sending fucking dogs into hostage siege scenarios, extraction from a foreign car. I'm like,
Yeah.
my dog's not going to do this. Like, you know, some wannabe cop. They're all civilians, a few security guys, and a bunch of wannabe cops themselves. So they all loved it. But I'm like, and my dog loved it all, but it was not appropriate to a civilian.
Yeah, I know.
So the scenario where dogs were sent into a foreign car, I asked to alter that a bit and change it to more of a road rage incident. So have my dog
Hey, Ryan, are you ready if I start letting everyone in, buddy? Ryan, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm sorry, Wayne. Yeah, the lieutenant is having a tough time getting in, so I'm sending him that little password thing. 182637. So give me just 1 second, because we definitely need him in there.
So what's his name? I'll keep an eye out for him and I'll get him in and assign him as co-host.
Awesome. It's Mark Duncan.
Okay, let me just go and have a look at the attendees. 1 sec.
Okay. It's asking him for a meeting code.
There shouldn't be a meeting code. I didn't set one.
Okay. And then a link below it. Can I send you his email real quick and see if maybe you can send him a link? I don't know why it's not working. Oh, wait, invite others.
Mark Duncan, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, I've just admitted him in. You should be able to hear him.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good.
So I'll just go and make him a co-host so if he needs to share his screen or anything later down the track.
Perfect.
All right, hang on 1 sec.
Are you there, Mark?
Hear me?
Oh, now I can
Hello?
hear you. Perfect.
Okay.
Yep, all right, we're all online. You ready for me to let him in, Ryan?
Yes, sir. You go right ahead.
All right, buddy, here they come.
I don't have any video though.
Well, with no ado, I'll sign straight over to Mr. Ryan Wilbur, and mate, off you go.
Excellent. Well, thank you and welcome everyone. Good evening and good morning, depending on where you guys are located. I'm Ryan Milburn. I'm your host for tonight. We're going to go over some very basic explosives 101 for new EDD handlers, but also for your regular security or patrol officers that may come in contact with some of these explosives. So before we begin, let's see. Okay, I think I got everything going. I'll tell you just a little bit about my organization, International Casino and Resort Working Dog Association. So as you can tell from the name, we are basically a little bit more focused on the resorts and casinos and the private side of EDD work. But of course, we always support our law enforcement friends. I'm a retired cop myself, so I always want to make sure that we get out this information to law enforcement, but especially on the casino and the resorts and hotel private side that doesn't always enjoy the budget or the same training opportunities that law enforcement gets. So very quickly, this is kind of how our organization is made up. We've got contributing members that help us with expertise, time and money. And tonight's webinar is brought to you by Protective Force International. So I'd like to thank those guys for sponsoring tonight. And of course, Wayne Ferrari, with your organization, truly thank you for your help with this tonight. So welcome to everybody. Here's a little bit more about our group. We're kind of made up of mostly program managers of other casinos here in Las Vegas, but we're branching out internationally. Cameron Ford with Ford Canine is also one of our contributing members, John Simon. And then, of course, we've got Andy Anderson and Woody Chan over at the Las Vegas Convention Center that also helps us out. And you can see Jonathan Alvarez there as well. So a little bit about my background. So I'm a retired law enforcement officer. I was a cop in Colorado and Wyoming. I also spent what felt like 30 years, but it was a little less than 3 years in Iraq on the Baghdad Embassy Security Force. So initially right on the embassy, and then they loaned out some of the top teams directly to the Iraqi army, where we worked on the red zone, green zone checkpoints there. And that's really where I cut my teeth on EDD as opposed to narcotics work, which is what I did in law enforcement. I also taught a police canine handler school out in North Carolina, and I'm approved by the North Carolina Board of Community Colleges as a police canine instructor. I also did a little bit of work for the U.S. War Dog Association as a technical advisor. And currently, I am the program manager of canine operations at the Wynn and Encore in Las Vegas. And then I have a second job. I also work on the National Explosives Detection Canine Team program for TSA. That's kind of an on-call process where we test the canine teams for TSA across the country. So that's a little bit about my background. I've certainly have some experience in this, but I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there that have even more experience than me. But I'm honored to be here tonight to bring you guys some information on explosives to help keep you and your community safer, as well as your dog. So a little bit about why this class was put together. Really, even as a handler, before I was a trainer in law enforcement, as well as overseas, and certainly now that I'm on the private side, a lot of the time, canine handlers have never seen the training aids that they're using. So a trainer puts the hideout, if they're lucky enough to even be able to train on real aids, the trainer puts it out, the dog comes and the team comes and the dog finds it, and then they're off. The canine handlers generally don't get to see these training aids or what these things look like that they may come across, and certainly in the security world, in a hotel room, on a traffic stop, if you're a patrol officer and whatnot. So to me, it's very important for everyone to see what these things look like, both in devices, but also just by themselves. Again, because we generally don't get those opportunities. On the private side, there are a ton of programs that run solely on ScentLogix, which is great, but you need to run on reel from time to time, and you also need to see it. Because all of you canine handlers, you security officers, you're the eyes and ears. You're the people that are going to see these things in a hotel room when you're responding to a noise complaint or on a traffic stop if you're a cop, etc. So I want all of you guys to be familiar with these things. So when you see them, A, you know, hey, that's a dangerous thing, but also, hey, we need to start asking more questions. We need to get in a safe location, etc. So I also want to make sure everybody knows I'm not a chemist. I'm not going to pretend to be a chemist. This class is not about molecular weights and blast pressures and whatnot. There's some great chemists in the canine world that you can go to their classes and learn all that stuff. This is very much a 101 class. So it's not intended for bomb techs, etc. It's just for the lawyers. This is just for visual, and also some of these humans can smell. I want you guys to know what these things smell like. But we're not going to talk about taking bombs apart or safe handling of explosives, etc. So obviously tonight it's a bit of a serious topic, but it's okay to laugh. Certainly in the law enforcement world, if you can't laugh from time to time, you're far more likely to eat your guns. So you have to be able to laugh sometimes. And don't be shy at the end. We've got a question and answer period. Feel free to ask whatever questions you want at the end. Also, to go over a little bit, everything that's in this presentation is open source. There's nothing in here that's classified. There's no secret squirrel stuff. This is all open source that got pulled off the internet. So for better or for worse, this is open to bad guys as well as good guys. But I wanted to try to collect it for you guys for tonight so you guys can learn from it. And then also a fair warning. There are some videos in here. There's some graphic images, sounds, some language, acts of terrorism and whatnot. I don't know how many folks are joining us today that have experienced downrange or have been around when things go boom and people get hurt. It's okay if this is too graphic to turn it off, step away, hit mute, whatever. There's no judgment here at all. So feel free to get up and leave at any point. If it takes you back to a place that you don't want to go. So tonight's agenda, we're gonna talk with our Las Vegas Fire and Rescue Bomb Squad lieutenant. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. We'll go over definitions and terminology that's common in the EDD world, and then a little bit about classifications, and then of course some devices as well as precursors to keep an eye out for on your patrols. So if you're an EDD handler or a security guy, and great, your dog hits, your dog is trained perfect, your dog hits, you do what you're supposed to, now you call the cavalry, you call the bomb squad or law enforcement. Well, now what? What do you do now? You don't get the luxury of just walking away. You now get to speak with the bomb squad. Tonight, we were originally going to have the bomb squad commander from Las Vegas Fire and Rescue, Don Saucedo. I will say congratulations to the Saucedo family. His wife went into labor today, a week early, so he is welcoming his first child tonight. So in his stead, we have Lieutenant Mark Duncan, who is also the lieutenant on the bomb squad. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Lieutenant Duncan to kind of talk a little bit about what they expect when they show up after an EDD handler is called an alert. Are you there, Mark?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. You go right ahead.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. My name's Mark Duncan, Lieutenant, Las Vegas Arson Bomb Squad. Yeah, so I guess we're the cavalry, as Ryan mentioned. Ironically enough, I wasn't in the Army. I wasn't in cavalry, though. I was a combat engineer, so I have some explosives background way back when. But since then, I've been on the fire department for 18 years, paramedic, technical rescue, and now with the Arson Bomb Squad for 5 years. And so I've been a bomb technician there. And we have a really, really robust relationship with our local canine partners, both with the casinos and with Metro Police, Airport TSA, and we train with them pretty regularly. And it's awesome. I love dogs. I have one here in the house. Well, you can't see her right now. She's upstairs. But yeah, so what we need from you guys when we arrive on scene? Well, first of all, if your dog alerted on any kind of suspicious package, you should probably know that you should back away the same way you came out of that area. And also, before you do that, sometimes security personnel will take a photograph with their phone before they back out of there and call us. That's helpful. But the best thing is your senses. You know, not only your dog senses, but your senses. You know, what you see, what you smell. You know, having good situational awareness for your area. So, you know, in a casino on Fremont Street, the Strip, backpack, your dog hits on it. Okay, so immediately back away, cordon off the area, call us. So before you do that, was there any antenna sticking out of this backpack? Anything leaking out of it? Was it something like a backpack that had a very, very large bulky item in it? I'm thinking of the Boston bombing, you know, and then this is all before we reviewed security footage. You know, this is very, very, very first responder level stuff. So that's key information. The size of the device, because we use X-rays a lot when we initially interrogate a package, a suspicious package. We'll go downrange, we'll suit up in our PPE with our bomb suit or light armor, and we'll use X-rays. And we want to know how big it is. You know, suitcase. Well, there's many different sizes of suitcases. Backpack. Well, there's many different types of backpacks. You know, antennas is a big one because antennas tell us that it's a remote control device, command detonated from some distance, and they're just waiting for someone to come up on it. You know, maybe they'll set off a device, and then they'll have multiple devices, and then they'll try to lure in us as secondary victims from the initial detonations. You know, just anything out of the ordinary. Buttons, switches, like if you see a school backpack with a toggle switch on the side, obviously backpacks don't come with toggle switches on the side. That could be a safe arm switch for the bomber before he leaves it and he hits safe arm and walks away. And then I'm looking at a slide here that Ryan gave me. I just wanted to make sure I cover everything in it. Anything around the device, you know, egress, you know, entry and egress points, because sometimes we'll start robotically with our robots to interrogate the package with, you know, eyes on, or actually picking up the package before we actually send a tech downrange in the suit and the X-ray. So good entry and egress points. Location. So if we're in a casino, oh, there's a backpack in the Cirque du Soleil theater. Okay, well that's a huge place. Which exit is it by? Which entry is it by? What aisle is it in? Can you give me an aisle and you know, an aisle, you know, L4, you know, under seat L4? That would be great for us. It's less time for us to have to look for it. In fact, we just had a bomb call today, yesterday. A citizen walking down the sidewalk saw 2 improvised firework devices on the sidewalk. He picked them up, moved them into the rocks. Well, he was ex-military. He called us. He shouldn't have picked them up, but he did. He just wanted no one else to get hurt. Well, he didn't give us good intel on where exactly he put it in the rocks. It's a huge area. We spent 20 minutes doing a search pattern for these 2 little commercial fireworks that were improvised with hobby fuse. And then we went ahead and rendered those safe on scene. But so a big part of our job is getting the intel from the PR, and for you guys with the dogs, if they hit on something like a package, again, your safety is number one. Back out of there right away. I mean, I've worked with some of these dogs, and they're very energetic. They're very driven dogs, and they like to, you know, if they sniff on something, they're moving it. Sometimes these devices could have a motion sensor that could set it off. Unfortunately, you're already, if it moves slightly and the dog, you know, sniffs on it, that could be bad for you guys. But if the dog alerts, you know, don't keep trying to work the package. Back off, and while you're backing off, look at your area. And then what else can we talk about here and for your initial response and what we want from you? I'm looking at my list here. What has your dog been trained on? What kind of explosives? Of course, we have all the conventional explosives. A lot of these casinos here have a cache of the scent packets that aren't actually the real explosive, but it's the same profile. again, I'm not too versed in the intricacies of the canine world and what you guys do, but again, it's been amazing for me to be able to work with you guys. But actually training on real product is really, really helpful. Commercial explosives are common, but guess what? The terrorists and even domestic terrorists, international terrorists, they're not using conventional explosives. They're using homemade explosives. Even back to the Boston Marathon bombing, they used flash powder. They harvested flash powder from fireworks to create the main charge and put them in pressure cookers with fragmentation around them. And they were deployed with devastating effect. Yeah, not a lot of people died, but a lot of people were injured and wounded. That's basic firework powder. So yeah, C4, okay, great. Comp B, TNT, dynamite, okay, maybe someone will get hold of some dynamite from an old mine. That's not what we're seeing. We're seeing homemade explosives and fireworks. We've had several TATP calls here in the Valley, triacetone, triperoxide. That's a common high explosive that's been homemade. It's really easy to synthesize. You have to have some equipment and some knowledge, but it's effective. It's sensitive, but it's also effective as a high explosive. And I don't want to delve too deep here into the whole homemade explosives world with precursors. And if you find a package and your dog hits on it, what is he exactly hitting on? What has he been trained on? So your training regimen, like I think what we try to do is every 6 months to 8 months, we recycle our local partners and their dogs through not only conventional explosives, but the homemade explosives. And we get ready-made home explosives from the FBI, little samples, mainly TATP, urea nitrate, and HMTD. HMTD is hexamethylene tridiamine, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Basically, that has a kind of a fishy odor because hexamine comes from the hexamine fuel tabs, the old school camping stoves that you may have used back in the day. That gives off a fishy smell, but otherwise TATP is colorless. I mean, it's white powder, it's odorless. Urea nitrate is also white powder, odorless. So you're not going to smell it, but if you see like white powder residue on the ground around a package, that's a huge red flag for you. I mean, you might even want to let your dog close to that because again, a little powder on the ground of this homemade explosive, just by walking on it, it's sensitive to heat, shock, and friction. It could set it off. Who knows if this terrorist was sloppy and had some extra powder, fly out of the bag when he set it down. Who knows? So precursors, like I said, I don't want to get too deep into it, but if you're going to a hotel room in a casino, so you have a suspicious person, reports of strange smells, people seeing this weird girl going in and out, who knows? You go in there to do a search with your dog, you open the door, you start seeing pots on burners, you see Pyrex bowls, you see white powder on coffee filters. These are all different varying stages of the synthesis of homemade explosives, mainly those three I mentioned, TATP, urea nitrate, and HMTD. The October 1 shooter we had here in Las Vegas 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, he had Tannerite in his truck or his minivan in the parking garage. It wasn't pre-mixed yet. The Tannerite is a legit high explosive. It's ammonium nitrate, frills, with aluminum powder. You mix them together, shake them up, put them down range, shoot your rifle, explodes. It's a legit high explosive. He had 60 pounds of it in his minivan. Who knows what he was planning to do with it? We'll never know. I mean, we all know what he did do, but we went to that scene. We went downrange. I was running support at the time. We had two other bomb techs actually run on the car, and it was safe. It wasn't a high explosive yet because it wasn't pre-mixed. So you go into a hotel room. I mean, you look for these kind of suspicious processes going on. Peroxide bottles. A bunch of empty peroxide bottles in the corner. Fireworks wrappers. They're harvesting flash powder from fireworks to make a main charge for a larger device. What else? Anything that looks like a chemistry set or some kind of whiskey still in a room, red flag. I wouldn't even go in there with your dog. Back out and call, again, the cavalry. What am I missing? Anything else? I think I've
No,
gone
I think,
on.
and we're going to cover a lot of that here in just a little bit. So I'm glad you hit on that. That's perfect.
Yeah. So be a good witness. Snap a few photos of your cell phone real quick if your dog hits on something, and just have a good, just look at the area and let us know, and we'll take it over from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lieutenant Duncan. Lieutenant Duncan's going to stick around for the Q&A here at the end. So if you have any bomb tech questions, he'll be able to help us out. Awesome. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So let's start talking about just some basic terminology. The lieutenant kind of spoke about it. How do we get from explosives to explosions? Well, those 4 things on the left, those 4 things are going to make that change. So sparks can be either static discharge or it can be mechanical. And then, of course, friction, impact, and heat. Those are all the things that if you see a device or you see these explosives anywhere, those are the 4 things that will turn it from explosives to an explosion. Really, what is an explosion? We all kind of have a general idea what that is, but sometimes that term is not used properly. As you can see here, every detonation produces an explosion, but not every explosion is a detonation. So sometimes those words get thrown around a little bit as the same, but as you can see, a steam boiler or a pressure cooker that doesn't have anything, any explosives in it, it may explode, but that's not really a detonation. So that's the kind of difference between those 2 terms. And what are explosives? Well, again, we kind of see things, fireworks, we know from playing Call of Duty or whatever it is the kids play these days. It's a mixture of substances that can be essentially detonated and cause an explosion or a detonation. So again, that's essentially what they are. You need to be very careful when you're around anything or you see these signs around explosions. So again, a detonation, it's a specific form for high explosives. We'll go into some classifications here in just a minute about high order versus low order, but that's what a detonation is. And it involves the shock waves. We're also going to talk about blast waves and blast wave pressures and the damage that causes. But it is not burning. That's the difference. So deflagration versus detonation. Deflagration is just a fancy word for saying it burns. Now, these fireworks can burn very quickly, but it's very different from a detonation. So your low order explosives, your flash powder, smokeless powder, black powder, those are low order as long as they're not contained. But those are low order and they technically burn as opposed to detonate. So blast wave, I just thought this was a great picture. It really shows you what a blast wave looks like. And anytime there's an explosion, it's that blast wave, that overpressure, that kills more people and injures more people than any of the other portions of that explosion. Whether that's secondary, tertiary from shrapnel, whatnot, it's the blast wave that actually kills more people. And this is a way that you can kind of physically see it. Here's a quick video where you can actually see the blast wave as it travels through the air.
Excuse me, Ryan, we're not seeing the slides or the video at all. Your camera's on your face.
Well, nobody wants to see that. Thank you for telling me that. Share.
I can see your PowerPoint presentation.
You can?
Yeah, I don't know if everybody else can, but
Yeah, he's got it fixed now.
Excellent. Okay. Let's try this again. Forgive my technical inabilities.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So you guys get the idea. You can see the blast wave going through the air long before the explosion or long before shrapnel is coming out from whatever that explosion is. So here's another quick video where you can see the blast wave going through the air. It's tough to see how far these guys are or how to tell how far they are. They look like they're probably about a mile out. Obviously, they're grouped up. They think they're safe. You be the judge. So again, that blast wave is what the primary injuries are going to be from. So, you know, we always talk about in the EDD world, inches matter, seconds matter. When you see some device or explosives, it's time to jump into action and start calling in the cavalry. So blast pressure effects on the body. Why is it that that blast wave is so lethal to humans? Here's a quick video about that.
Ever wondered about the invisible effect of blast from landmines, rocket-propelled grenades, or improvised explosive devices?
Blast injuries are one of the most common causes of traumatic brain injury on the battlefield today. Blast injuries are caused by the impact from a complex pressure wave generated by an explosion. The explosion causes a huge rise in pressure, which creates a blast wave. This wave starts at the site of the explosion and travels outward. Blast injuries can occur when the blast wave hits the body. Air-filled organs such as the ears, lungs, stomach, and intestines are particularly at risk for blast injuries. This is also true for organs that are surrounded by fluid, such as the brain and the spine. Other causes of brain injuries in a blast can include being hit by flying debris, being hit by sound, or breathing toxic gases or vapors.
TBI blast injury symptoms include persistent headaches, dizziness, ears ringing, double vision, problem speaking, memory problems, or confusion, restlessness, or agitation. If you or someone you know has been exposed to a blast and are experiencing any of these symptoms, contact your healthcare team right away. For more information about traumatic brain injury, visit these websites.
So as you can see there, that blast wave is, again, what hurts and injures all of those portions of our body. So again, inches matter. You see something, take some cover, find some place safe to go, and then call the cavalry. So again, primary blast injury, that's from that overpressure. Secondary, that's from the shrapnel and whatnot. And then tertiary is usually from your body actually being thrown from the shockwave or from the explosion. So initiators, they're used to set off high explosives. For the most part, the best way I can explain or describe these things is for those of us that have barbecues and you're using that electric match to hit the button, you got the gas going and you're hitting that button, that's essentially an initiator. So there's a whole slew of different kinds. But of course, in the security world and what I tell my guys at my hotel, there's no reason for any of these to be in a hotel room. There's just not. So again, we're asking those extra questions. You see these things, it's time to go into investigation mode and make sure that you're doing it safely. So a detonator, we talk about that sometimes as well. The picture on the right, it's the old-timey, like Wile E. Coyote pull it up, push it down, and what that's doing is it's generating an electric current. And you see the two terminals there on the top. Well, that connects to those wires you see on the left into the blasting cap. And then that blasting cap is into your main charge. So that is how that explosion is initiated. And again, there's no reason these should be in a normal traffic stop or in a hotel room or on a normal property. So quick question, if anyone was paying attention, of course, you couldn't see my slides, but question, do low explosives detonate? I think if you probably saw my slides, you would know that no, that's false. Low explosives deflagrate, they burn. High explosives are the ones that detonate. So we also talk about relative effectiveness from time to time. TNT is what is used as the benchmark against all other explosives. So you'll see an RE factor sometimes on RDX, it's going to be above 1. Smaller ones like, you know, your black powders and whatnot are going to be below 1. But that RE factor, again, is TNT. That is your benchmark that all other explosives are measured against. Taggants. Now, taggants are certainly important on the canine side. There's two kinds of taggants. There's detection taggants and then micro taggants. So micro taggants are similar to what cops have in their tasers. When a taser is fired, all the little confetti pieces come out. There's little microscopic serial numbers. So if someone got a hold of the confetti, they can track down who, you know, which officer fired it, what department it was issued to. Explosives had those at one time as well on the micro side. What's more important on the canine side is those taggants make low vapor pressure explosives easier for dogs to find. So there's 4 different kinds. You can see them there. Most likely you're not going to come across taggants by themselves, but it is important to know in the canine world, what are you training your dogs on? If you have C4, you need to know, is it tagged C4, your Semtex, your RDX, or is it untagged? Some of the pseudos come in different ones. You can get untagged scent logic and you can get tagged, but it's important to know which of those you're training your dogs on. As far as forms of explosives, basically you name it, it's out there. So your basic ones, plastic explosive slurries. Yes, there's putty ones that can be delivered with a caulking gun. There are foam explosives. For the most part, normal folks aren't going to come across that unless you're a breacher or into the demolition world. But I know there's some movies out there where some SWAT guy rolls up and he's got his aerosol can and he squirts it on a wall. That is real. Those are out there. Of course, sheet explosives, solid and liquid, you don't need, those are pretty self-explanatory. But all of those are forms of the explosives. One quick thing on some of your slurries, it looks like cookie dough. So if you see containers or what looks like those logs of cookie dough in a hotel room, but it's not cookie dough or it's a clear container, you might want to ask some extra questions about that. Explosives are generally put into high order or low order classifications. Within your high order explosives, there's 2 categories, primary and secondary. So sometimes we'll talk about this on the canine side of, you know, again, what is your dog exposed to and what can your dog find as far as odors. But here, primary and secondary, primaries are very sensitive as opposed to the secondaries, which are generally used as your main charge. So think of Oklahoma City with the truck full of ANFO. That ANFO was a secondary. It was the main charge. It's not super sensitive. Here's a little graph that kind of lists a few. Of course, there's far more explosives out there, but it kind of breaks it down into what are your low, what are your high, and then of course your secondary high, as well as your main charges there. So again, we talked about primary high explosives. They are very sensitive. You have to be very careful with those if you're using them as real training aids. And then your secondaries, obviously be careful with those as well, but they're less sensitive than those primaries. So in the canine world, we talk about high vapor pressure, low vapor pressure, etc. So again, I'm not a chemist. I'm not going to pretend to talk about molecular structures and whatnot, but it is important to know the difference in your training regimen of what your high vapor pressures are, your mediums, and your lows. So highs are 1 part per million, very easy for dogs to find. You see the 2 tagans there. Of course, that's why they're tagans. Thankfully, TATP is one that is also a high vapor pressure and easier to find. Your medium, it's still well within the range of what dogs can find, but it's 1 part per billion. Certainly not a math major, but that is 1,000 times lower than your high pressure explosives. So your TNT, your ammonium nitrate, that's kind of in the middle, still easy for your pooch to find. And then your low vapor pressures, those are more difficult, still again within the detectability range, but you may need to help your dog a little bit more, set them up for success. They may have a little bit harder issue to bracket to the source if it's untagged RDX, HMX, etc. So this is a chart that I pulled out of a great book. If you are running an EDD dog and you don't have this book, get it. It is extremely helpful. It's a great book, tons of tips in there. But this is a chart I pulled out of it that kind of shows you where they are on that vapor pressure, why it's easier for dogs to find TATP and TNT as opposed to HMX. So let's get into some of the specific explosives that you may come across, again, in your normal patrol functions or security functions. Ammonium nitrate, it's widely available pretty much all over the world. It has a ton of useful and legitimate uses in agriculture and whatnot, but in the wrong hands, it is extremely dangerous. So the picture you see here, it's in prill form, so it's in little round balls, very small. They are generally lightweight, so if you blew air or your breath onto this, you can kind of knock over this pile. But that's what they look like, very white, very small. And again, in that prill, you can also see it in a crystal or white powder. But generally, at least in my area of operations, prill is, for whatever reason, easier to find, and you're more likely to come across that. As you can see, it's a key component of ANFO. ANFO, it's called ANFO because it's ammonium nitrate and fuel oil mixed together. Extremely potent. Again, this has been used in all kinds of different terrorist activity, including Oklahoma City's probably the most famous. But again, it's got other uses. So if you see this in a car on your traffic stop, we need to ask some extra questions. Now, of course, could he be a farmer? Sure, could be, but let's ask. Let's make sure. I just pulled 4 particular terrorist acts here. The red numbers are obviously the people that died in these terrorist acts. So you can see there's a lot of lives that have been taken by ammonium nitrate. Let's talk about Tannerite for a minute. Here in the States, it's very easy to get. You can walk into a Big 5 or a Bass Pro or sporting goods store. You're over 18, you can buy pounds and pounds of it over the counter. Usually for one container, it's anywhere from 14 to 18 bucks. It's a binary, so it's basically ammonium nitrate and aluminum powder. When they're separate, totally safe, you mix them together. And now, as the lieutenant had talked about, extremely dangerous, high explosive. So you can see it's ANAL. I will say, if you're going to do extra research on this, make sure your boss knows that you're researching explosives, or your wife for that matter, because all kinds of Google things come up if you don't put the hyphen in between the AN and the AL. Just a little tip. I had an uncomfortable conversation with my boss after doing some research on my work computer. So here is a quick video. It's kind of a fun video of what Tannerite can do. Again, this is open source. I can't verify how many pounds are in here, but I believe this was 5 pounds of Tannerite. Yeah. So That is 5 pounds. And again, at least here in the US, maybe $16 at the most. And all that takes is a gunshot to take that off because it's very sensitive to shock. So in my area of operations, we're always on the lookout for this. This next video, I will say there's at least 27 things wrong with this video. It was filmed in the South or in the Southern United States. Now, I lived in the South for a little while. I taught police canine handler school out there. It's a little different down there. So try not to judge too much, but this gives you some helpful information and also shows you what it's capable of as well.
This is Tannerite. It makes explosive targets. You mix it together and then use a high-powered bullet to explode it. Well, it's normally safe if used correctly. It wasn't this time. This is what's left of a broken-down riding lawnmower. 23-year-old David Presley packed with 3 pounds of Tannerite, then shot it with a rifle.
It went terribly bad from there.
A flying piece of the lawnmower severed Presley's leg.
Be careful. It's very dangerous. It's not a toy. It's much more than a firecracker.
Fire in the hole! The Walton County Sheriff says he gets several complaints a week about Tannerite.
Big thing of Tannerite.
Frightens their animals, wakes their children. I'm all for Second Amendment and gun rights, and I'm all for people enjoying their constitutional rights.
Okay.
If a property owner has 20, 30 acres of land, absolutely, they're well within their rights to discharge phones or ignite Tannerite.
But it's not meant for close quarters, property-wise or people-wise.
As a rule of thumb, I'm told, and I don't know, that you need to be 100 yards away per pound of Tannerite.
In this case, Presley was just 43 feet away, and his friends were standing right behind him, reporting it. Keep in mind, Tannerite is perfectly legal. You're allowed to use it in Georgia. Obviously, the problem would be if you injure yourself, or at best case scenario, you simply annoy your neighbors with the loud noise.
So that's what it looks like, at least commercially here in the US. And again, that's kind of painting with a broad brush. There's some great people in the South, and I really enjoyed my time down there. This video is a little bit lighthearted, obviously, for most folks other than the gentleman who got his leg blown off. But it's easy to get, and it's only a matter of time before bad guys start using that. And as the lieutenant talked about, the October 1st shooter had it in his vehicle. He had 60 pounds of it. So you can see from those videos, it's very powerful. Black powder. Black powder, it's a misnomer. It's not a powder. So if you haven't been able to be around it before, you may think it's a powder. It's not. It smells almost like it's been burnt already. You see it, it's more in a granular form there. It smells like charcoal and sulfur. Many times it is pulled out of fireworks along with flash powder or smokeless powder, but that's essentially what it looks like on its own. Smokeless powder, also a misnomer. It's not a powder. You see from the photo there, it's even in smaller grains than what most black powder is. It almost looks like the lead in mechanical pencils. So it comes in 3 different varieties: single base, double base, triple base. It's also important to know what you are training your dog on as far as that. But as far as seeing what it looks like, that's what it looks like in its own, out of the bottle. So if it was leaking out of somebody's pipe or their luggage or whatever, again, hey, we need to see something, say something. Inches matter, minutes matter. We need to investigate that. We talked briefly about blasting caps. This is a whole bunch of different ones that include the wire in it. And again, that wire would connect to that larger detonator. So there are electric detonators that are much small, and then that kind of old-timey Wile E. Coyote push the plunger down as well. So blasting caps are nasty little things. They look fairly innocent if you found them by themselves. Many times, not so much anymore, but here in the West, there's a ton of old mines, and sometimes blasting caps just got left behind, and kids end up finding them because they're in the dirt and they're playing around. These are extremely dangerous things, despite the fact they just look very small and they're in your hand. So I've obviously already given you guys some warnings about the videos and pictures. Here's another one. They can do a lot of damage. Now, you're not going to blow up a building with a blasting cap. You can obviously blow off your hand. Blasting caps, again, you got to be extremely careful with them. Again, this is open source, so I can't verify all of the background on this, but fairly certain this was a gentleman who decided he was going to kill himself. He was going to try to commit suicide with a blasting cap in the mouth. And this happens. So again, it's dangerous, but you're not going to blow up something by itself with that blasting cap. But it's a good indicator that, hey, he may have some other explosives around. So capacitive discharge, this is an electronic version of that plunger that I was talking about. But really, at the end of the day, in a hotel or your traffic stop, if you find anything that says arm on it and fire on it, we need to ask some extra questions. We need to do a little bit more investigation. So Comp A, there's Comp A, Comp B, Comp C, etc. It's RDX, but it's mixed with wax. So it somewhat looks like cocaine for those of us that are cops or perhaps had a little wild younger days. It can look like cocaine if it's on a guest table in a hotel room, because we find that quite often, but it's got a waxier consistency. So again, if you blow on this pile of Comp A, it's not going to fly off the table like cocaine would be. So it's different. Same with Comp B. It's essentially the same as Comp A, except we're adding TNT into it. So that's why it's got that little bit more orange, kind of brownish color. It is also waxy, but it can be more brittle than what most, at least in my experience, what that Comp A is. So it almost looks, you can tell I'm hungry. It looks like peanut brittle to me, but it's waxier than what your peanut brittle would be. So C4, I think everyone's pretty familiar with that, at least from PlayStation and Xbox and whatnot. It is a military explosive. It is mostly RDX. It will, if it's unpackaged or if the package is broken, it will smell a little bit like motor oil. That's part of what makes it malleable, as well as helps it explode. So generally, if it's brand new, it's white. If it's a little bit older, it's more brownish in color. Also depends on how much UV light it's been exposed to. Very malleable. It's putty-like. That's why it's such a great explosive for breacher teams or your military folks, because they can basically mush it into anything. So here's a quick video. I show this video partially because it's good guys using C4, but also it's a great video that shows what fresh C4 looks like.
A robot and a pound of C4. In the heat of battle, the Dallas police used the extraordinary tactic, likely a first in America, a robot with a bomb to kill a cop-killing sniper.
We knew in negotiation this was the suspect because he was asking us how many did he get. And he was telling us how many more he wanted to kill.
He had already killed 5 officers, wounded 7, and 2 civilians during a 45-minute gun battle.
Slow down! He's in the damn building right there! I don't know where he's at. He's in that building or he's shot from that building.
Chief Brown made the final call after a 2-hour negotiation. He told his SWAT team to come up with a creative plan that would keep officers out of the line of fire and take out the suspect.
They improvised this whole idea in about 15, 20 minutes. Extraordinary.
That plan involved this kind of robot secured with C4 explosive. So that right there, the pound of C4.
Yeah, this is 454 grams of C4.
We asked explosives expert Matt Barnett to show us how this might have worked in the scenario detailed by the chief. First, officers had to maneuver the robot to the 2nd floor. This is a similar model. Notice the arm extension. That would have held the C4 explosive in place. Police then had to get it close without the suspect knowing it was there. It was positioned behind a brick wall.
This 2x4 right here simulate the arm of a robot. This 4 will be attached to this arm directly against the wall right here.
We set up strategically placed cameras on the brick wall with rebar inside to demonstrate the blast range. To give you some idea of just how powerful a pound of C4 can be, we're standing more than a football field away from that wall. And when it explodes, those fragments could be dangerous to the human body, even here. That is outside. Inside a building, Barnett says the damage to the human body would be exponentially worse.
In a closed environment, yes, a pound of C4 is a lot.
Fire in the hole! In 3, 2, 1.
So it wouldn't necessarily be the blast that killed the person, but the fragments that killed the person.
That's right. Yeah, the wall becomes the lethal aspect of it.
Would go right through you, basically.
Oh, absolutely, like butter.
So that's what fresh C4 looks like. Again, you know, inches matter, seconds matter. So when you see those things, I know I sound like a broken record, but this is the whole point of this presentation, is for you guys with the eyes and ears that see this stuff first to get the right people there. So dynamite, of course, we all know dynamite. It's generally an older explosive. It's rarely used anymore, but a lot of times, especially here in the West, Grandpa's had this in his garage for the last 30 years because he worked at the mine in, 1935. It becomes very dangerous as it sweats out, especially the older kind that has the crystal or the nitroglycerin that crystals out. And so the bomb squad's called to that whenever, Grandpa finds it or the kids find it later in their garage. Data sheet. So data sheet, we talked about the sheet explosives. It's very specialized, but it is a flexible sheet that is used. Obviously, it's got PETN in it. For me, it's a bit of a pet peeve because all throughout this industry, people call it data sheet. It's not data. It's not an IT thing. It's data sheet for detonation. So the difference between data and data.
In case of anybody's following us, so we can hear them coming.
Okay, hurry up.
Good idea. Hey, Data, where are you going? I'm setting booby traps. You mean booby traps? That's what I said. God, these guys.
So if you're over 40, you automatically know what that movie is. Of course, it's the Goonies, but that's data, not data. Little pet peeve of mine, sorry. Also, data, not data. Data sheet, det cord, etc. So here's det cord. Det cord can come in it's got many different outer packaging, but you can see the inside of it. And no one here is asking you to look at the inside of these wires. But if you're doing investigation, you're seeing stuff like this, again, hey, ask those extra questions. So this is det cord. And we're going to see a video here in a minute, the difference between det cord and shock tube. Det cord means it's detonating. It's actually exploding as it's going through the wire. So here's a quick video to show you what det cord is and that they're using that to initiate a shape charge. You probably heard of shape charges. Killed a lot of folks in Iraq, unfortunately, going right through the MRAPs like it wasn't even there. Like there was no armor.
Yeah, we're just trying to get into the safe. Like if you imagine if you're a bank robber, we're going to try and just blow a hole through the door.
Yeah, the safe seems to have lost most of its concrete.
Yeah.
But we've got this barrel here to see.
Yeah. So what we've got here is a shape charge. It looks funny because it's got a copper cone inside, and packed in behind the copper cone is explosives. This is the det cord that we'll use to initiate it. So explosion will come down the det cord down here, hit the back of the shape charge, and the explosion, the detonation will start at the back and travel forwards. What that'll do is force this copper cone into an inverse jet. So the back part here, right at the back, will come out here before this part even gets hit, and it will form a jet. And it's used to penetrate things like tanks, armor, or safes, or anything like that. And the correct, you have to have something called standoff, and that's 6 times the diameter. That's about 23 centimeters, 24 centimeters away from what you're going to penetrate, because that's the width is about 4 centimeters.
So if you had it too close,
you had it too close,
be as effective.
it wouldn't be as efficient. The copper jet wouldn't have reached peak penetration capability.
Never seen a shape charge as like. Neither have I actually. Not properly. They're usually part of like. Whoa! Absolutely instant. What? All right, wind that back. Hold on. It's honestly like when a meteor enters the atmosphere and you're watching a big ball of light coming through the air. It's the same sort of speed as well, I feel like. The copper's already gone into the water, and then when we spin on, you'll see that miles later the barrel comes up. Oh, I just love how directional this explosive is. I mean, that's what it does. It's job. Literally nothing went anywhere else. No.
So you can see we talked about before a primary and a secondary. They're using that det cord as the primary to set off the shape charge. So of course fuses, that's just your old school fuse that you put, you get out of fireworks, you light it, it goes down, usually made of black powder, depends on the fuse, but mostly black powder. You see a bunch of that wound up, also an indicator. So shock tube is different from det cord in that it's basically taking that message from one end of the tube to the other without it exploding. So I wouldn't recommend it, but you can hold shock tube when it goes off. It's not going to hurt you, but it's going down to set off that main charge.
So we've got Doris and Frank here, who are retired mannequins.
Well, I've noticed that Doris's fingers come off.
Yeah, that's why she was retired. She had an industrial accident. This is a shock tube.
Yeah.
And it has inside it's called a dust explosion, which travels down the tube at about 2,000 meters a second. And that's enough to initiate a detonator and enough to initiate a detonator. That's what it's used for. So what we're going to do is trail it all the way from where we are, all the way down, swirling around. It's going to come to Doris here. We're going to wrap it all the way around Doris, like this, down to the bottom, where we're going to hit a detonator into some det cord, which is then going to run all the way back around her here, and then that will actually explode and hopefully sort of obliterate her, because this is just sort of quite safe, it won't do anything to her. And then the det cord, which is quite a long one, is going to travel all the way down to here, where we're going to have a shaped charge, which is then going to go through Frank, and then we've got some foam canisters on the other side that will hopefully explode when the copper jet manages to get through.
So this is a huge chain reaction of a bunch of different types of explosives.
It's an explosive train, is what it's called. So you start small with something like this,
Yeah.
and you go into primary explosives with detonator, and then into det cord, and then into a main charge.
This time I'm going to set the exposure on the Phantom much lower, so we don't get as much white out from the det cord explosion. A bit more detail, yeah. Don't look up her skirt.
I was looking into her finger.
Oh.
Well, you're looking at how I look up her skirt from here.
Yeah. Fair to be safe and sorry?
I think so.
That's the shock tube right there.
It's racing along.
It's so quick. It looks fake, doesn't it?
It's got to be like a little disco happening here.
What? I like the little twist. What the? Whoa! It's like she's in the most dangerous nightclub ever.
Do you think that the det cord, because it was wrapped so tight around the head, it all just went at once around the head?
Yes,
or do you think
because
it
it would
followed
be
around?
sympathetic detonation, so one of the layers would have got the next one.
The shape charge beats the shock wave.
Yeah, it's insane.
I deliberately made this one much darker because we're shooting much slower, but we should actually see the shock tube travel almost at a leisurely pace at this frame rate.
Oh, here we go. It's gone down the legs.
Should be coming any second.
Oh, where are we? Oh, there we go. I think it's just...
Oh,
yes. Whoa. Oh! The step up in...
So you can see that's a great video, at least to me, of the difference between shock tube and det cord. One's obviously blowing up. The other one's just sending that message down there. So HMTD, this is another nasty nasty thing. It looks similar to crack. If you, again, are coming from a law enforcement background, do not put this in a NIT kit. If you guys are using those field tests, it's not good if you put it in a NIT kit. It's going to be a little bit waxier, again, a little bit wetter than what your crack is, depending on how fresh it is. But the drier it gets, the more it looks like it. So HMX, another one, it's related to RDX. It's odorless. You're not going to be able to smell that on your own. I will say it looks very much like Dippin' Dots. So I don't know if you're in a part of the world that has Dippin' Dots, but I'll tell you, one picture on here is Dippin' Dots and the other is HMX. So at first glance, hard to tell the difference. I will tell you, the one on the left is obviously the strawberry vanilla Dippin' Dots. The one on the right is HMX. So they're damn near identical. Be careful when you see these things. If they're Dippin' Dots and they're not melting, might be HMX. Let's ask some extra questions. Just a little side trivia. What does HMX stand for? It's all over the board. I know we're kind of running a little bit behind here, so I will just go right to it. HMX stands for all of those, depending on what part of the world you're in. God love the Brits. They want to put majesty on everything, but everyone uses different ones. As long as you call it HMX, everyone understands what you're talking about. PETN, also very popular. It's one of the most powerful explosives out there. It's a crystalline powder. It looks somewhat similar to Coke, but it's much more crystalline than powder, if that makes sense. Also odorless. We're not going to smell it. Of course, your dog, if it's trained properly, will find it. But essentially, it just looks like a white powder. PE10s, it's been popular with terrorists, but they haven't been great with killing folks with it. But as you can see, the evolution of what they're trying to do between underwear bombs and toner bombs, it is still popular, and they're being very creative with it. RDX, again, it's a white or sometimes clear translucent crystals, unless it's in the det cord. Det cord, they usually artificially dye it either red or pink. But again, it's very powder-like and a little bit waxy. Be careful if you see that anywhere. So what does RDX stand for? Again, we're running a little bit back behind. If anyone answers C, I truly feel bad for you. So hopefully no one's answering C. The answer is A and B. Semtex, also a popular plastic explosive. It'll be orange or red if it's out of its package. Again, it may smell similar to C4 depending on how old it is, but that's what it looks like. It almost looks like putty or Play-Doh. TNT, we kind of talked about that. That's what we were adding into that comp B. Orange, or brown, depending on how much it's been used. So us in the canine world, sometimes, God love these canine programs, they're using the same training aids for 10 years. It's gonna be much darker. So TATP, very popular now. It is fairly easy to make. As the lieutenant had talked about, it's becoming very, very popular, not only with terrorists, but just your average kind of screw loose guy in his kitchen. Sometimes it's used for terrorism stuff. Sometimes it's just used to blow stuff up. It is extremely sensitive. As you can see, it's got a shelf life of usually only 10 days, and it is everywhere now. The recipes are all over the internet. Al-Qaeda has put it in their Inspire magazines. I mean, it's truly everywhere, unfortunately, but very, very sensitive. Known as the mother of Satan, explosive because so many bomb makers were killed trying to make it. So it's drier. Well, depending on how old it is, it can be wet or dry, but it looks much more similar to sugar. TTP has been used multiple times to great effect to kill a lot of folks, unfortunately. Again, these are just 4 that I pulled out. It could be a whole slew of other ones that has been used. Right here in Las Vegas, I try to make sure my guys are aware of this. This was just a couple months ago. We had a meth dealer that decided to branch out his chemistry skills into making some TATP right down the road from the hotel that I work at. He gave it to one of his, shall we call them clients, who was buying his meth. That particular client said, hey, I'm thinking about killing myself. So this very 5-star high service meth dealer decided, hey, I'm going to go ahead and give you some TATP. It'll be great for that. So he gives him this TATP. He then, the homeless guy walks maybe a quarter mile, half a mile from where he got it, and starts going bananas on a public road right at Tropicana in Maryland, which is a big intersection here in Las Vegas. Metro gets called. He's talking about blowing himself up. They talk him down. Basically, he puts it down. They realize, hey, this is actually TATP. They served a search warrant on his house and on the meth dealer's house, and they find the 2 canisters there that you see, the one on the left and that blue one full of TATP. Now,
I was on that call.
Were you really? Oh my gosh!
I
was
P1. I was primary on that call. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Just looking at the picture makes the hair on my arms stand up. That's
sorry to interject into your presentation, but yeah,
not at all.
Yeah, I can elaborate a little more on it later on if you want. But
excellent. Well, and I'm sure what you'll get to it, but if that stayed in that form for a long period of time, it can go off just on its own weight. The weight of its own structure can make it explode. It's horrible stuff. So here's a little map of where my hotel is and where this all occurred. So it was 2.14 miles away from the area that my team and my dogs protect every day. That's just right here in Vegas. It's available darn near anywhere. I pulled a quick video and some stats for those of you in Australia. It's in Australia. I mean, people are using it, unfortunately, and making it fairly easy.
Large exclusion zone has been in place here in Davoren Park this afternoon. Many have been evacuated, while others have been warned to stay indoors, away from windows.
Pretty nerve-wracking to know that's only 2 houses down.
Very scary. Yeah, like, wow, if that's explosives, that could blow up my house.
Police made 4 controlled explosions of a device known as a Mother of Satan bomb, a highly volatile substance too dangerous to be moved. A 43-year-old man appeared in court this morning charged with making explosives. The court heard he first became known to police back in February when he allegedly posted on social media anti-Muslim sentiments.
There are no indicators of any violence or threats of violence to any member of the community.
The court heard police received fresh information yesterday that sparked a more extensive search and the man's arrest. He's been denied bail and will appear in court again at a later date.
So just over the last few years, right there in Australia, you've got some guys using it because they want to hurt Muslims. Then you've got another set a few years earlier that are trying to blow up airliners with TATP. And then back in 2013, you got a guy that just wanted to make it because he found it on Google and thought it'd be fun to blow stuff up. You've got the whole range just right there in your area of operations. So let's talk about devices and precursors. We're getting towards the end, and we'll get you guys on your way, or at least to the question and answer period.
dynamite, gunpowder, as we can see among the white. And what's interesting is that they have even a scale here. That means they have wanted to know how much explosive goes into each bomb. And then they have cut through this wall that divides these two different shops. They must have belonged to two different mechanics or two different people, but the militants have cut through it and connected both shops. In the next section here, we have some of the actual improvised roadside bombs. It's basically put together they have welded together some pieces of iron and steel, and they have built for each one of them a lid, which means the explosive that we saw in the other room would go into small canisters that they have put together. These are all fused, which means there are cables that would be connected to the bomb and set off. These cables and fuses we see here would set off the bomb. That's part of the car. This is the major part of the workshop. And each one of these you see, this is where the dynamite would go. And it has springs inside. It was shown to us by springs. And when the car drives on top of it, it will spring up and explode the dynamite. They have built many of these. And again, they have not used them yet. They are brand new. Everything here is improvised. This is not like a professional bomb manufacturing site, but they have had the expertise. And this car, they have brought into this place to regular explosives and bombs to make a car bomb out of it. And as we see from the number plate, it's from Nineveh, Mosul. So the Iraqi bomb disposal teams have defused, of course, all the bombs inside this car. And these two are live bombs. They have already been built. Explosives are inside. The lid is closed, but the Iraqi soldiers have cut the cable. Therefore, it's safe unless it's connected to the fuse again. These are much bigger bombs. Much bigger bombs. Probably 10 times the size of the smaller ones. And imagine the damage this would do if it's put inside a house or underneath a road or inside a truck bomb. This would be filled with dynamite, gunpowder, and nails, anything that would increase the damage and the impact of the bomb. During the process for the operation to liberate the city of Mosul, they have discovered dozens of bomb makers, workshops, and so-called factories in the different places they have liberated. One of them is this one in the town of Bantallah.
So guys, this is what we're up against. Whether you're an EDD handler or a security guard or a patrol officer, in the middle of a war zone, these guys can make that many and those kinds of devices. Think about what they can make in your area of operations here in the States, especially when we just got done talking about TATP, going down to Bass Pro to buy some Tannerite. We are up against very creative and motivated people. So I don't care if you're a patrol officer, a security guard, an EDD handler, bomb tech, we are all on the same team and we need to help each other against stuff like that. So pressure cooker bombs, kind of next up on the list, also becoming extremely popular with terrorists. You can see there Boston Marathon, very famous, the Ariana Grande concert. Here's a quick video that kind of shows about how a pressure cooker bomb works and the effects there at the Boston Marathon. Unfortunately, very easy.
FBI photos from the Boston Marathon bombing investigation show the remains of an explosive device, including twisted pieces of metal, charred wires, and a battery. One photo shows a half-inch nail and part of a zipper stained with blood. There are also photos of a bent metal lid with bolts. The items are now being analyzed at FBI headquarters in Virginia.
There, specialized examiners will reconstruct the device, or devices, and determine its makeup and components.
Investigators say the crudely designed bombs were heavy and carried to the scene in black nylon bags. They were pressure cooker bombs packed with shrapnel. The lid of one apparently blew onto the roof of a nearby building. Similar devices have been used in Middle East terrorist attacks. The pressure cookers briefly constrain the blast, and when the pressure is released, they can send heavy pieces of metal flying through the air. Investigators are also looking at photos taken before the bombings, showing individuals carrying dark-colored bags near the bomb site. They're trying to determine if one of those people could be the bomber. 3 people were killed and more than 170 injured in the blast. This morning, doctors at Boston Medical Center said they performed amputations on 5 victims. They have also been removing debris from victims.
We've taken out large quantities of pieces of things. Some are metal, some are plastic, some are wood, some are concrete.
President Obama will be in Boston tomorrow to attend a memorial service for the victims.
So at least in my area of operations, pressure cookers are easy to get, they're cheap, and of course in the hotel world, there's no reason for a pressure cooker to be in a hotel room or in someone's vehicle in the parking garage, etc. So again, eyes and ears to look for these kinds of things. Here's a quick video as well of what happened at the Ariana Grande concert. And what I really want you to take, especially for you non-dog handler, the security folks here, how quickly the chaos, it is literally a wave of chaos that goes across the crowd in just a matter of seconds.
What's going on? Oh my God!
I don't know about you guys, but I'm a father. My daughter is that age that wants to go, for whatever reason, to Ariana Grande concerts. But the bottom line is, everyone that's here today watching this, we are the difference. We are the line to stop that from happening. A concert full of preteen girls that just want to listen to music and their little hero that they've got their CDs or whatever. All of us are responsible for keeping them safe. So we need to know what these devices look like. Need to make sure our dogs are trained properly to find these things. This is a mock-up of the actual pipe bomb that was used at the Olympic Park bombing in 1996. Again, I say this a lot, we're on the same team. I'd be shocked if anybody here today could tell me one thing from the 96 Olympics or someone who won a gold medal. I would say the vast majority of you, maybe if you're from the States, will remember Muhammad Ali. The only thing that other people remember is the bomb and the bombing.
People couldn't believe that it actually happened. There's a bomb in Centennial Park.
Party of the century, baby!
You have 30 minutes.
And right then, boom! Is that a mad bomb?
a matter of time before there will be another bomb. We had a truly unknown circumstance.
What the hell was that?
About whom we knew nothing other than someone was gunning for us.
Well, there's a little more to this.
Did you do it?
Obviously, that promo is for something about Richard Jewell, and I hope you don't need this training class to tell you that the sticks of dynamite with a clock on it are suspicious and most likely a bomb. But that phone call that was put in that was the actual bomber. And at least in my area of operations, that happens all the time. It's been maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month since we've had a phoned-in threat. So again, not only are we looking for stuff, but we got to be prepared with our policies and our training to go keep that kind of stuff from happening when we get those calls. So as far as devices, here's some pictures of the shoe bomb, Richard Reed. That's PETN, a little bit of TATP kind of mixed in there. We're getting to the part of devices here that truly it is only limited by the imagination of your bad guy. If your bad guy can imagine it and put some explosives in it, it can be a device. Toner cartridge bomb, that's PATN, again, in that toner cartridge. This is a brief kind of infographic of how far that toner cartridge got on a plane before it was intercepted. Now, one of the people involved in the plot actually called it in. They felt guilty, said, hey, it's in a toner cartridge. People inspected it and still couldn't find it and then just blew it off. Like, oh, well, that's just a crank call. The plane kept flying. Well, as you can see there, it wasn't a crank call. These guys are immensely creative. Underwear bomb, it is kind of funny when you think about his drawers there, but at the same time, they're trying anything they can to kill innocent people. And we are the line. Inches matter, minutes matter. Another little infographic. I can only imagine what the poor guy in the seat next to him was thinking when the bomber pulls out a syringe and starts jamming it into his crotch. But again, these guys are being creative. Anything can be a device these days. Letter bombs, been used for decades. Book bombs, again, there's no limit to the imagination of these bomb guys. A necklace bomb, this was a particular one in Pennsylvania, very famous here in the States. Immense creativity. So those guys weren't even terrorists. That was just a criminal conspiracy. But again, it's a unique device, truly imaginative from the bad guy standpoint. But you guys, as either EDD handlers or security officers, are the front line to see those things. Here in Nevada and Vegas, we had a giant bomb that was walked into a casino right past security. And not only did security see it as it was being wheeled in, they did ask at least, hey, what is that? The people wheeling it in explained it was a new copy machine. And they wanted to leave it in the president's of the casino's office. So the security guys actually unlocked the door and let these guys put this giant bomb into the casino. Now, this bomb was extremely complicated. Again, this was a criminal conspiracy. The guy happened to owe a bunch of money to this casino. But security guards saw it to some extent, but didn't put two and two together that, hey, this could be a device. We should probably ask some extra questions here. We won't go into all the details, but suffice to say that bomb was immensely complicated, and I believe it's still taught at the bomb school in Huntsville. The FBI came in, they tried to do a countercharge, and God love them, they tried their best, but they blew up the casino.
Yeah, there's still a mock-up of this device in the halls of the bomb school in Huntsville, Alabama.
Really?
Yeah.
Truly a unique device, incredibly complicated, essentially impossible to defeat.
Yeah, it's like it's multiple ciphers and lock combinations, and yeah, it's pretty.
It was an incredible device.
I think there was around the main charge, there was a bunch of money. Here's your money, the money I owe you, or maybe it was fake money, but it was kind of like a FU to the casino around the main charge, which was probably 50 sticks of dynamite, something like that.
Yeah, incredible. But when you think about it, this was a huge bomb, bigger than a dining room table, that was wheeled in by multiple suspects. And again, those frontline guys that didn't get the training of what devices could look like actually helped them get it up to the office of the president of the casino. So, of course, in my world, hotel stuff, we talk about suitcase bombs. Again, a bomb can be damn near anything. Something specific for those of you that are in the hotel world are hotel bomb labs. Now, the IC has been warning about hotel bomb labs for years and years and years. This picture's from the Marriott Hotel in Jakarta, but again, those front line, we're also looking for precursors. So the lieutenant kind of talked about it a little bit earlier of what those precursors can be, and we'll go over it here very quickly in a second. But as far as bomb labs in hotels, these are just 4 that I pulled. I know there's more out there. So, and that's both in the States as well as overseas. Now in Jakarta, we also kind of think, oh, well, it's Jakarta. Maybe it's not 5-star like some of the hotels here. Let me tell you, it was a JW Marriott, and it was also a Ritz-Carlton. Those were extremely 5-star resorts that don't have kitchenettes like your typical Motel 6 or your budget places. And these guys are still able to come in with a hot plate, a slow cooker, and not only manufacture the TATP, but build the vests to then just walk downstairs and blow themselves up and kill and wound all the people at that hotel. And right here in Vegas, we talk mostly about explosives here. We had a guy in a hotel room making ricin a mile from the strip. So again, that front line, you guys are responding to a noise complaint in a hotel room. Please look around, see what else is in there. Look for these precursors. Now, these aren't all the precursor to look for, but in general, if you're at most hotels, people shouldn't be bringing their own blenders or multiple bottles of hydrogen peroxide or acetone. There's no reason for a car battery to be in a hotel room. Look around when you're in there. And if you're a bell desk or a bellhop and you're taking luggage up, not saying go through people's luggage, but If you're getting a strange chemical smell from someone's luggage, call security. Bring a dog in. Let us come take a sniff. This is a little more in-depth slide of precursor chemicals for a variety of different explosive devices. As you can see, there's a ton of different things in there. Some as innocent as flour and honey. Others a little bit more noticeable in a hotel room, like motor oil or sawdust. There's no reason for that to be in a hotel room and whatnot. So again, you guys are the eyes and ears, and minutes, seconds matter. You see these in a room, you can't just walk away and say, well, I'll tell security about it tomorrow. It can come down to seconds. So please be aware of your surroundings. I've got just a couple, I think there's 3 more slides here. We talk about suitcase bombs because, again, that's my world now. Quick video of what happened in Brussels with suitcase bombs.
Brussels on alert tonight. The headquarters of NATO and the European Union still reeling after a brazen terror attack on that city. A series of deadly bombs, at least one packed with nails, killing dozens, injuring hundreds at transportation hubs at the height of rush hour. Here at home, the U.S. stepping up security and issuing travel warnings for Europe. Millions on edge, bracing for what ABC's chief foreign correspondent Terry Moran is in Belgium for us. A routine morning became the scene of carnage. As Brussels, known as the capital of Europe, target of 2 separate terrorist attacks. What it was? Twin blast hit Brussels International Airport, filling the terminal with smoke and shattered glass. Big bang. Everybody cried. Came along here, you saw kind of smoke, you know. Then, an hour later, another explosion at the Malbec metro station. ISIS has claimed responsibility for the deadly terror attacks that left at least 31 dead and at least 250 injured. Tonight, 15 local hospitals are treating the victims.
Yeah, Ryan, I believe these guys used a 5-gallon paint bucket full of TATP. That was the main charge. Inside a expandable suitcase, and in the security footage, you could see them wheeling them, like picking up their baggage and wheeling them on a little cart to the point where they detonated it. Kind of like that, but yeah, it was a 5-gallon paint bucket full of TATP.
Wow.
I believe. Yeah, and it's 2 of them. That's devastating, as you can see.
We only saw some smashed windows and we didn't get any information.
The terminal filled with smoke, sound of screams. Travelers lying on top of each other on the floor. This man holding a little girl.
Stay down.
People huddled in fear, and then the question.
What it was? A truck or was it a terrorist?
This man picked his small baby up off the floor before running to safety. Bombs so powerful, ceilings collapsed. Airport security scanning for victims. Okay, ordering people to.
So again, guys, we are the difference. I mean, you're seeing people with picking up their babies after bad guys are using these devices and these substances to injure the innocent. So I've got one more video for you, and then we're pretty much done.
I don't know what to say, really. 3 minutes to the biggest battle of our professional lives. All comes down to today. Either we heal as a team, we're going to crumble. Inch by inch, play by play, till we're finished. We're in hell right now, gentlemen. Believe me. And we can stay here, get the shit kicked out of us,
can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell. 1 inch at a time. Now, I can't do it for you. I'm too old. You know, when you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. The margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw with our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's going to make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's going to win that inch. And I know if I'm going to have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. There's 6 inches in front of your face. Now, I can't make you do it. You got to look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now, I think you're going to see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're going to see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're going to do the same for him. That's a team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals. That's all it is. Now, what are you gonna do?
So guys, when I do this presentation live, I usually say look around the room. Usually when I do this live, there's a wide variety of folks. There's security folks, there's police, there's fire department, bomb techs, hotel security, canine handlers. We're all on the same team. Guys, we need to take care of each other. We are the line between those bad guys doing what they want to do and the innocent folks. So support each other, train with each other. I know in the old days, we all had our little training groups and we didn't play well together. It's 2020. It's time to play well together. So I'm now a program manager. I'm not on the front line. For those of you that are on the front line, including Lieutenant, all of you guys that are watching that are security guards, EDD handlers, I take my hat off to you. You guys are that front line, and I know you guys are out there doing the right thing. So thank you. Quick list of my sources today, and that's what I have for you today. So with that, again, thank you all for sitting through this. Thank you for what you do. Thank you, Lieutenant Duncan, for joining us. And I think
you're welcome.
We'll open it up to any questions if anyone has any, and we'll go from there.
Hey, I don't have any questions, but thanks a lot, guys. That was cool.
No problem at all. Thank you for taking the time to learn a little bit about this stuff.
All right, cool.
So,
my dog's whining, so I'm gonna get out of here.
No problem at all. Go take care of that pooch.
somebody wanted you to show the sources again, Ryan.
Sure. So this is probably 90% of the sources that I used for this. The other ones were pretty obvious in the video, but not all the videos showed where I got it from. Again, I would highly, highly recommend the book. The third bullet point there has some tremendous information in there if you really want to take yourself from that beginner level to that next level. Unfortunately, in the private world, a lot of brand new EDD handlers have never even been to a handler school. And I can't encourage people enough to get to a handler school, but if you can't, if your company won't pay for it, whatever, find yourself this book and help yourself out. Be a better handler. Any other questions? Oh, okay. Says, don't have a mic. Any chance to get a copy of the PowerPoint so I can share it with the dive team I'm working with? Yes, absolutely. Let me get back to my email page. Just shoot me an email from whatever your official work email is. Obviously, I need to keep track of it somewhat. I don't want to be sending it to random Gmail accounts, but from whatever your work email is, send it to me. Let me make this big again. Oh, that's not it. With International Casino Working Dog Association, we also do have a website. It's just icrwda.org. We also have a private Facebook group. If you're not part of that, please join us. We've got other webinars and whatnot, other training opportunities. Next month, I've got a great bite work and decoy development trainer coming in, Carlos Ramirez with CRK9, and all of these are free. We're never gonna ask for money as long as you're part of the ICRWDA group. Oh, greetings from Kabul, Afghanistan. Thank you for whoever's in Kabul right now. Awesome. There's my email again. It's just rmilburn@icrwda.org. Make sure I'm not missing any other questions on the chat thing. What is NIC? So a NIC kit is what patrol officers keep in their patrol car. So if they find suspected narcotics, you can do a field test. It's usually a little plastic pocket that has different ampules in it. And so based on your training and experience, if you look at a substance and you think, oh, that's heroin, before you fully arrest the guy and charge him, you put a little bit of it in this NIC kit. I think NIC is the name brand of it, but then you break the little ampules, and if it turns a certain color, it tells you, hey, this is actually heroin, or no, it's not. You put an explosive in there, like Comp A or Comp B, and then you start breaking the little chemical ampules in it, it's not going to be fun. It may blow up or at least light on fire. I think that's it from the chat questions. So any other audio questions? And Lieutenant Duncan here is here to answer questions too. He is a wealth of knowledge, and again, one of those frontline guys and a bomb tech, which we're very fortunate to have him here. So again, thank you, LT, for making the time today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And I love the firsthand experience of actually going to some of those calls that I'm using the slides for.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, I can give just a couple minutes. Yeah, I was on that call, and it was, our initial response was to patrol officers on scene with a suicidal homeless guy who said he wanted to kill himself, and some guy initially he said he found it, and
of course,
and it was a pill bottle that had foil around the lid and a green hobby fuse coming out of the top, and through the brown plastic of the pill bottle you could see some type of white material. And patrol had run on this guy multiple times. He was a regular customer in the area, and they were kind of skeptical at first, and then they saw this guy, this pill bottle in his hand, and what ticked him off was the fuse coming out of the top. And they're like, okay, well, go ahead and put that on the dumpster and step away from it. So they got him in custody in the back of the patrol car. They called us out. So here we are, and we go downrange, and it is what it is. The pill bottle, green hobby fuse coming out of the cap, foil around it. Took an X-ray, and sure enough, there was frag in there, ball bearings, like almost like shot pellets from and it was intermixed into this substance, this white substance. So like, well, it could be tweaker shit, or it could be in a legit device.
Yeah, with tweakers, you never know.
Yeah, and then he changed the story, of course. He said, yeah, he got it from his drug dealer because he was depressed and wanted to kill himself. And his drug dealer told him, just put this in your mouth and light the fuse and your problems will go away. All right. So
he probably wasn't wrong.
Right. So we went back down the range, and we, not to get too detailed into our operations, but we opened it up, rendered it safe. We did a field test with our police partners who have the equipment to do that, and right away it came back as TATP as the main ingredient, and it was impregnated with these ball bearings. These they look like bird shot out of a 12 gauge quail round, or bird shot round. And so then we basically countercharged it on site, because this is the second TATP call I've been on here in the 5 years I've been on the bomb squad, and we don't mess around with it. We don't move it. We don't. We basically countercharge it on site. Yeah.
I don't blame you one bit.
Yeah, we cordon off the area, and then Metro, again, we're partners with them. Even though we are a fire department and we are the bomb squad, we partner with Metro with their investigative assets and their undercover assets, and they sat on this guy's house for a while, and the night went on. It was like a 12-hour call for us, and sure enough, they did a high-risk warrant. SWAT came out, busted down the door, got the guy in custody. And then we went in there and started doing a search. And that's the picture you showed was what we found in this garage.
Wow.
And that is
that was a good amount.
Oh yeah. It would have, yeah. I mean, it gives me kind of goosebumps thinking about it. It would have taken part of that house out if it had gone off.
Absolutely.
It's very sensitive, and you never know with the TATP how old it is and how sensitive it is. That's why we don't mess around trying to move it, take it out to the range, and suppose that we countercharge it on site with robots. So what we did in that case is we used our robots to grab these glass vials and beakers. We already pre-dug a hole and did some protective works with sandbags. We placed these jars in the hole. And then, of course, we went downrange in our protective gear, bomb suits, and we countercharged it in the backyard.
Wow.
So that's how we addressed that. I mean, yeah, it's a huge 12-hour, 16-hour ordeal, and we got to evacuate neighborhoods basically because we don't want any frag or collateral damage going off. And we use charges that are high explosive, but they have a high thermal effect but a low concussive effect. I don't want to get too far into the details of it, but they're specialized disposal charges. And we're not just putting a block of C4 on it like in Afghanistan. I mean, I was in the Army, combat engineer. I mean, when we would clear minefields, we would just place blocks of C4 on mines and clear a lane.
Yeah, a little different in Las Vegas than downrange, but thank you for what you do, and thank you for sharing that with us. I must say, now that I'm not downrange anymore, I'm very content with my ScentLogix TATP, doing my dog training, and not having to deal with real stuff like that. So thank you for doing that.
No worries. Well, like I said, we train with you guys a lot here in the Valley, and we have the actual product in small amounts, and we actually put them in the Ray Allens. So we have the dogs train on actual real products, mainly TATP, HMTD, and urea nitrate.
Very important. Absolutely. And thank you for that. It really helps us out to make our dogs, to keep our dogs at that level that we want them at. So thank you.
Welcome.
Well, I think, unless anyone's got any other questions, I think we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, Ryan, I've got one.
Oh, go ahead.
So TATP at the moment, as we know, it's most probably the most widely used at the moment because it's so easy to manufacture from stuff from stores and etc. So
Yeah.
how do you guys train on that, or what's your procedure for being able to get access to that to train it? Because we all know it's really volatile. There is ways to make it a little bit stable, but for
Correct.
training purposes, do you have, like, is there an agency you need to go to get approval? They give you some, all that type of thing?
Well, we never take possession of it, at least with my program. We have our ScentLogix aids that we use for our normal maintenance training and also our imprintation of the dogs on that particular substance. If we want to deal with real, we are going straight to Sean Saucedo or Mark here to set that up. And then, of course, we also have another program in town over at Caesars that we work great with. And those guys have some of the precision explosives versions of that stuff that are kind of that in-between level. You know, it's different than ScentLogix, but it's in a stable form, so we don't have to worry about the safety issues. And then we can go to the bomb squad here when we want to train on real.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem at all. Any other questions?
Just a quick comment on that gentleman's question. Back to that call I was referring to, the TATP call on the bum that wanted to kill himself. When we opened up that container and then found out it was TATP, we noticed it wasn't a dry crystalline powder. It was actually a moist powder. And then Metro confronted the guy about this. And then the guy told him, "Oh yeah, my drug dealer told me to keep it wet until I wanted to use it." So
wow,
yeah. So that's this guy making the TATP knows enough about the process to tell his customer, yeah, keep it moist. It'll keep it sensitive, but let it dry out and then set it off.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for, again, taking the time here. If there's anything I can do to help you guys or your programs on the dog side of things, please email me. Please join the Facebook group or hit us up on our website. I'm absolutely happy to help anytime. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Again, thank you, LT, and please give my best to Commander Saucedo with the new baby. Congratulations.
Oh, yeah. I'll pass that on.
All right. Oh, yes.
Ryan, we'll see you down here next year.
Sounds good. I'm very much looking forward to coming to the conference, and we're going to do more of these webinars as well with some other experts on other parts of canine work, including bite work, like I said. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys all again, in person and on the web.
Thanks, Marty.
No problem at all. You guys, I guess in Australia, you have a good day. Lieutenant, you have a good night.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.